Now, late last year in the month of around September, the Office of the Prime Minister, OPM, received a grant from the Visa Guard Foundation, and this grant was meant to necessitate and also help the youth from the COVID-19 disaster that had crippled the economy, crippled finances. And around October, guess what? The Office of the Prime Minister came out and it was seeking for youths to come out, those who are dealing in agriculture, consultancy, real estate, to come out and actually apply for this grant that came out. Now, the grant per project, you would get between 5 million to 800 million Uganda shillings. Now, a series of these grants keep coming out, and the government keeps coming out also and advertising them for people to apply. Now, tonight on the desk, we find out, are these grants effective? Do they ever help people? Do the youth benefit from these grants? What are they? Who actually benefits from them? Now, we are on set with this man. He's been here before. He's a man who is actually vocal. You cannot put him to the wall. He always has his facts on the hand. He shoots from the hip. Mr. Kakuru Edson, he's on the set once again, and we shall be talking more about these grants and finding out what they are. And these particular grants, do the youths really get them or not? Welcome to the show. Well, once again.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure having me here.
Again.
I'm more than glad and excited to be here, sir.
Right.
Yeah.
So, last year, and you know, the ministry or government keeps coming out. We've received these grants. See people come and apply ABCD. But before we even go into the legitimacy of these things, legitimate or not, people get or not, what is the grant for a viewer who is watching you?
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity. Just like he stated, my name is Kakuru Edson, and I'm more than glad and excited to be here to share the little that I know, or the much that I know, to all the viewers. I'm one of the grants analysts that are coming up to be in position to educate and empower each and every person out there and maybe realize their full potential in one way or the other. Before we drill into the gist of the matter, we must understand that in a layman understanding of a grant is to give. It is to give. And our major focus and emphasis is looking at the different business grants maybe that come up, that maybe we think we can always uphold and use in one or the other. Right. Now, when you're looking at a business grant, this is a form of financial assistance that enables, that is meant to support and assist people in different aspects of life. Right. The United Nations Development Fund made a research, I think, around July, and they realized that close to around 85% of businesses in Uganda, formal businesses, were struggling. Right. So having such grants, they can easily assist us to raise these struggling businesses back to their feet. And
so
also,
when you say a grant, so when they give us this money, like what the Visa Guard Foundation did, we don't pay that back?
Not really. A grant is purely and entirely free. So if it is given to you, there is nothing. There are no strings attached.
No strings attached. No hidden agenda.
Exactly. It is completely free, and we believe that there are different forms of criteria that are followed before you are given this form of grant. Just before that, there are 4 different types of grants. There is what we call the competitive grant, and this competitive grant, there is some form of, it is in line with some proposal forms of writing, and there is a criteria that is followed for you to qualify for this particular grant. So when actually
who applies for that grant?
Now, with competitive, there are certain particular set standards that are put in place. So then you apply. So there is a panel that selects who qualifies, and then maybe who doesn't. Now, on top of that, there is what we call the formula grant. Now, with the formula grant, it is always open. They put the minimum standards that are given. For example, they can tell you that maybe youths between 15 maybe to 18 years, you can apply. So maybe that is the minimum standard that is put in place for you to apply. Now, with this one, they are not strict to certain groups of people or what. They just tell you 18 to 15 you can apply and maybe you can qualify. There is also a pass-through grant that is given and also a continuation grant. Now with the pass-through grant, it is, for example, through maybe the government of Uganda, maybe to the people, the youths living in the ghetto. Maybe it was given by United Nations, so it goes through the government of Uganda to the youths in the ghettos.
It's called the
pass-through grant. Okay. And maybe also the continuation grant that is given by maybe a given period of time. Maybe it can take like 20 years, so you don't have a particular there is no particular time frame that is given. So these are two types. These are the 4 types of grants, and they are meant to support these businesses that are starting up. There are a few things that we must understand. When you're applying for this particular grant, they are what we call the goals and objectives. So if you're having anything like an NGO that you feel should benefit from these grants, if you have a small business that is starting up or maybe that has been around and is being affected, you must have clear goals and objectives that can always guide you on what you're supposed to do and when you're supposed to do it.
So let a viewer understand, these people who are giving grants, for them they just have more than enough, so they need to grant.
Well, they don't have more than enough. I believe this is going to guide our discussion on the visa grant that was given. These people, I think, they don't have more than enough, but they feel they are what you call the areas of focus. For example, if you look at Africa, there are certain challenges that we are having that are not maybe in the United States or maybe in Europe. So if, for example, we have a challenge of malaria, if we have youth unemployment, maybe the biggest percentage of young people in Africa unemployed. So we feel like these people can always come up to assist. It doesn't mean that they have a lot, but they always feel like there is that area of emphasis. We talk about maybe clean water. There are lots of communities in Africa that are not receiving clean water. So if they tell you that they are willing to support so that you can, because in the long run, if people are provided clean water, there are certain things that now you're stopping. For example, diseases, exactly, and a few other things. The unemployment, if you empower these people to get jobs and maybe you support their small-scale businesses, in the long run, they're not going to run into the Middle East. They're not going to run as refugees. They're not going to be running into the United States to seek employment, but rather they're going to be empowered in one or the other. So they don't just have enough.
So these grants are actually doing the government's job. We're not politicking. Let's go for a short break. When we come back, we're still with Mr. Kakuru Edson, and we're trying to evaluate, analyze, and also understand the game of grants. Who gets them? Do the youth really get them? After the break. Now, very many thanks for always keeping yourselves glued onto U24 television. We trust that every time you watch U24, you're inspired, you're motivated, and above all, you are educated. Like tonight, you're being educated about the mystery that and the conspiracies or even the misconceptions that are around grants, donations, name it. Who is supposed to get it? Why aren't you being able to get it? But you can follow this very lovely discussion on our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Reach out for your phone right now. Go to Facebook, type in Shadrack Kisame or Shadrack Kisame for Instagram and Facebook, and you'll definitely be able to get me. Or if you have someone and they're not on TV, they're in the diaspora, tell them that the desk is live on Shadrack Kisame's YouTube. Now, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell just in case when we put out something, you will be the first to know. Now, we're still on set with Mr. Kakuru Edson, and we're trying to understand a few things about grants. Now, with this, we've seen what a grant is, the different types that are there. Now, for instance, this grant that we're talking about in particular,
the visa grant,
the visa grant from the Visa Grant Foundation, who is supposed to get it?
Well, just like we stated, what guides who is supposed to get this particular grant, they are the areas of focus. Now, when you look at the Visa Grant Foundation, it started in if I'm not mistaken, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Slovakia, and Czech Republic. Now, later on, these guys were able to spread their wings into other places in Europe, but now they are in Africa, now in particular Uganda. Now, with Ugandans, they've said it can be in the education sector, it can be in IT in fashion, agriculture, and all that. So, you do what we call, they did what we call a needs assessment. They look at these particular communities, what do they badly need, and how best can we provide these particular things to these people. Now, the challenge is most of the young people in our country, they are not educated. You realize that if such opportunities are around, there are very few people that can take up these particular grants, because not forgetting newspapers and these people choose not to read. And if we even don't talk about the government websites, yes, the visa graduates might be around, but we have other NGOs that provide grants. Yes. Now, for example, we have the Rupararia group of companies. It has different forms of grants. We have the MasterCard. It is in Uganda, and it provides the educational grants to so many people. And we believe if we choose to expose ourselves to information, maybe we can know how and when to get these particular grants.
So are you saying that a Ugandan who is down there could be struggling minus an education opportunity because they just failed to read and just failed to research?
Well, this also maybe goes back to the kinds of upbringing in one or the other, because we very much think that certain things are not meant for us. We are comfortable in our ghettos. We are comfortable where we are, and we think yet there are basic skills that you need. For example, if you're to look at one of the fundamental qualities of one's qualification in this whole thing of grants, you need to have some knowledge of IT. Okay, because with the fact that you need to apply, send this online and all that, now if you don't expose yourself to these IT skills, you're going to be left out in one or the other. Maybe another thing, the literacy levels in Uganda. The young people, they go to school, but they don't practically learn. To get to read certain things. Okay, what they love is maybe Snapchatting, video calling, but they don't go into maybe reading a lot of information, making research, because if that was the case, there are lots of opportunities online, and it's just a matter of us stepping out and using these opportunities.
So who is supposed to ensure this, as we get back into the grants discussion, who is supposed to ensure that Ugandans are aware of such opportunities? Is it up to the Ugandans themselves?
Well, it's two-way, because the government can put on clear communication channels to help these young people utilize certain opportunities. Sorry,
but does government have clear communication channels?
Of course it does. It does, but I think we have to work a little harder, because now if you look at the major interests of these young people, for example, if they do a lot of TikTok and WhatsApp, you can draft certain forms of documents and you share these documents with them. You have media channels. Yes, you have media channels, but you realize that some young people pay a lot of attention to bloggers more than these stations and all that. Exactly. So if you use these particular blogging platforms, they can easily share information to the young people, and maybe they can be empowered.
Let's generally assess. Do you think these grants, the youths have felt the impact of these grants?
Well, maybe I think if I'm to measure on percentage, I think they have benefited maybe with around 30%. There is still a lot to be desired. You realize that actually when I saw that information, I tried sharing it with some of my friends, and most of them said they had not heard about it. So you realize that there are some people who are capable, there are some people who are struggling, who need financial assistance, but they have not been in position to hold on to such, because maybe they have not gotten the opportunity.
Somehow there's a way useful information finds a way of just sliding away.
Well, at times we don't compare ourselves into digging into this information. It can be easy if someone shares a link, and they're like maybe fill in your details, and you know, and then you earn this something. You think you've seen some around there, but if it is something that is compelling someone to read and make research, I don't think people take time. It's like, you know, for example, the master's scholarships.
Yes.
We have so many undergraduate students that don't want to read and make research and realize the different master's opportunities that are around in Uganda, in the country, but even abroad. You look at, for example, there are different opportunities that are provided in the University of Pretoria, Cape Town, and maybe also in Europe.
Right.
But because you're done with the undergrad, you're like, I don't think I have a chance of reading that, because if you're in the process of applying, it can take you like 6 good months, you know, moving around and all that. So,
but this element of Ugandans and the youths mostly, that them lacking the element of reading and researching, what do we affiliate that to? Is it the education system or the children themselves, the youth themselves? Are they just lazy?
Well, this is you know, which is becoming a regular song that we have always sung to the government. The kind of education that we are receiving, the people are just receiving, but they are not practically engaged in one or the other. That is why when someone is done with school, they feel like, now everything is done. I don't think I have to associate myself with reading or even making research. So maybe it also goes back to the quality of education that we are receiving. But we must understand also that it's not purely about the educationists to be benefiting from this, because you are having a lot of marginalized groups. For example, the women. You can look at a small NGO called Sowing Seeds of Tumaini. This organization was supporting local female farmers. Now these people, they just came together to be in position to collect some money to buy seeds and all that. So if such an NGO is around, I don't think I need to have a degree to benefit from some form of funding. So maybe the form of selection also should be in position to cater for some people who haven't gone to school, or maybe who are not employed in the formal sector. You look at some NGOs, for example, for the young people that maybe haven't gone to school. Now these people, at times they end up being used by the people in the formal sector. They just come around, they write these project proposals, they apply for grants, and at the end of the day, maybe they come and they record these young people, and they can say, we're having a group of maybe orphans, we want to support them, they're starting up this, and maybe later on, having gotten the funding, these people run away. So maybe the criteria also has to be very clear to support the marginalized groups. Otherwise, there is still a lot that is left to be desired.
All right, let's go for a short break, but when we come back, we're still with Mr. Kakuru Edson and this aspect of grants here. Hope you are actually picking a leaf or two. Now, the next step after the break, we find out how do you apply and how do you get there? Where do you walk to now? Like for the visa grant, yes, it's passed, but what would you have done to get it? Do not go away. Well, if you're just joining us, I'm afraid you've missed two quite insightful segments of this very lovely episode of The Desk, where we're talking more about grants. Those grants that are there and you didn't actually know about them, but they are there and they are for you. Now you better sit back, relax, better lean forward, because Mr. Kakuru Edson is here to teach us now in this last segment the advantages and disadvantages. But remember, we're broadcasting here at our home at Nile Avenue at Nakasero Hill. We are on UBC headquarters, but remember, you're watching U24 and you are on The Desk, the continent's leading intellectual platform. Anything to do with intellect, The Desk got you. Now sit back, relax. What are some of the disadvantages, tangible things that youths have benefited out of these things? It's not media,
media visibility. The advantages?
Yes.
Well, I must say,
but are they there?
Of course they are there. There are some people that benefit, of course, but just so you know, there are lots of people that are applying for these grants. Close to 2,000 people apply, and about 200, 250 always benefit. So the competition is very tight. So if you're if you're having a sampling space of 100,
Yes.
you can only have around 15 or 20 people that can benefit from these grants. And so it means that there are few people that can always tell you that we've benefited in such and such a way. But nonetheless, there are those that benefit. When you look at, because we said with grants, it's free money.
Yeah.
And at times when you're, for example, you're having a business that is struggling, now like the Visegrad grant, it was providing some huge amount of money.
Yeah.
When you look at, there's a global grant in Rotary International that seeks to support the different Rotary clubs in Africa. For example, in polio eradication, in the fight against malaria, in providing clean water to people in different communities, in fighting peace, in fighting conflicts in families and all that. Now, when these monies are released, of course, so a lot of things can be revamped if there is some form of money. But also, some people may be compelled into doing certain things that they haven't been doing. You realize that before you qualify or you think about even applying for these particular grants, you must have clear goals and objectives of your organization. You must have a clear, maybe a financial statement and all that. So these grants also, when you're preparing to apply for them, they shape you in one or the other.
But do they test for the legitimacy of the documents you've wrote? The legitimacy, how true are they?
That's obvious. I'll give you an example. When you're applying, for example, for a MasterCard foundation, you realize that they even have supervisors, they have people who come into the field to clearly confirm the information that you've given, but also everything is now soft with the use of the IT. They can easily confirm that maybe whatever information that you're giving is true.
Right.
Yeah. So everything is always legitimate.
Yeah. So as you want, are the advantages done before you slide into the disadvantages? Yeah,
I think that's it. You get some form of free money. There is some form of IT improvement. There is exposure, because when these particular grants are given, there are different opportunities that are around. Once you qualify for the first grant, be rest assured that the next opportunity that will be available, you stand maybe chances 8 out of 10 to get that particular grant, because you've gained some form of trust by those people that are providing the grants. Then with exposure, exactly, they know that maybe you're legitimate, you know what to do, and maybe they have tested you, and you literally know where to go and what to do. When you look at exposure, these particular grants also have some form of a platform where people can come together to share ideas. There is a grant that was given to Mr. Adeneitwe of Teach for Uganda. Now there is Teach for Uganda, there is Teach for Indonesia, there is Teach for Finland. So these people come up, develop some concepts after they get together and get to share ideas on how best they can improve the education within their different countries. So there is a lot of exposure if maybe you qualify for a particular grant. For example, I also talked about the global grant in the Rotary circles. Now in Rotary, when you qualify for this global grant, you are given a chance and platform to go to the Rotary headquarters in the United States to go and defend yourself and discuss and see how best you can be used in the different fields. We have Professor Muyodi. He had written a very good project, and these guys were able to take him up. It is the WASH project, something like that, and is now coordinating it in Ghana and also in Tanzania. So there is a lot of exposure once you qualify for a particular grant.
Let's just slide into what, because our time is really fast spent. What is the bad thing about these things? Because it cannot have just all those good things.
Now there is a lot of exploitation, I must say, from people that are employed in the formal sector, because you guys know a lot about these grant things and the issues of speaking English. You get to utilize that opportunity to exploit these marginalized groups, just like I stated earlier. You get these young people, these desperate young Ugandans. You try to you draft certain things in your offices. You get to these young people, you talk to them, you record them, and you take to these particular grants, and you say maybe I'm supporting orphans, maybe I'm improving maybe agriculture in my community, and you get these particular grants.
Or you
and at the end of the day,
farmers take photos,
exactly, you take photos, and then you're in position to send to these people, and you get this money, and yet you don't empower these people. There are some people that have done it, both in the politicians of today, the leaders, and even the people themselves, the businessmen, because you understand that it's very hard to get close to 800 million for free. So people have to sit down and scratch their heads. Maybe also on top of that, it is time consuming. I must say, if you're to qualify for a particular grant, there is just so much that you have to do. There is just so much that you have to do. So some people tend to give up, and they're like,
So Edson, who then do these people who give grants, for instance, the Visa Grad Foundation that was given by Ministry of Prime Minister's Office.
Yes.
After people qualified, they got maybe 100 million, 200 million. Do they then go and follow up and see, okay, we gave this person after? How has this money, like an evaluation?
Yes.
Does that happen?
Yes, that is obvious. They always set up a panel, and EA monitoring and evaluation panel that can be in position to guide and also maybe support these people that are implementing this project. But also, on top of that, there are what we call performance indicators.
Right.
So there is something that is always developed that can be given for you to always fill in if you're implementing this particular project. For example, we can have an assumption that maybe between 3 to 4 months you'll be doing this, maybe between 5 to 10. So if you do not achieve certain goals and objectives within that particular time frame, maybe there are certain things that can be done onto you. So there is always maybe if those people are not interested, but if you invest your 200 million or 800 or 500, you always want to follow up and make sure that it has done whichever thing it was supposed to do.
But if you give me your 200 million, I'm entirely in your pocket. Don't I have to dance according to your tunes?
No, I believe that's not the case, because as you're applying for these particular grants, maybe you are awarded according to your area of specialization. We say, for example, in the area of education, now Teach for Uganda came up with an innovation of empowering young people both in school and outside school. So when they look at your concept note, they want to believe that maybe what you're looking at suits their goals and objectives. So they will not tell that we want you to do this or this, but they'll just do some form of assessment to see if what you're looking at is supporting maybe the development of the education sector in the country, but also refers to their goals and objectives.
So finally, do these grants, the international grants, do they come looking, or we have people in government that their job is only to lobby for grants?
Well, that's obvious. There are people there are certain specialists that are meant to be lobbying for these grants. For example, there are certain educational grants that are always given. There are certain research grants. That's why you can hear that maybe the University of Makerere is partnering with the University of Pretoria, to come up with the COVID vaccine. So now these particular research grants, there are certain officers that are always in place to lobby for these particular grants, so that they can support the different sectors of the country.
Your last words under 30 seconds to Ugandans right there in regards to grants.
Well, thank you very much. I must say we have an opportunity. It's just a matter of us looking out for these opportunities and also trying to utilize them. If you don't have information, don't just sit back and say, well, I don't have information, I have nothing to do. Look out for these forms of information, use your social media, try as much as possible to equip yourself with knowledge, because I must say the world has become a global village, whereby whatever that is happening in Alabama or maybe in Alaska, you can know about it. It's just a matter of yourself equipping this information and also building yourself in one or the other. I would like to thank you so much for this opportunity, and I must say I'm happy to share my knowledge with you guys.
All right, it is a wrap. Mr. Kakuru Edson, for you, he's always vibrant. Whenever he comes to the desk, he's the man who has his facts on hand. You can never push him to the wall. He says as he knows it, he says as he sees it. But from me and the entire U24 management, would like to say thank you very much. Many many thanks for always keeping yourselves on the continent's leading intellectual platform. Now this year we're actually going to be bigger and better. All you need to do is keep glued onto the desk and U24 television. Now good night, good luck, adios for God and my country, and may the good Lord bless this beautiful Uganda. Now until next week, same place, same time, and of course same host, now more than ever. I'm yours truly, Shadrach Kisame. Good night.